Sekiro, a game that is widely known for its unique fighting system and combat mechanics. I would even go as far as to say that Sekiro is the game that comes the closest to a perfect combat experience. This video will be exactly about that. First, I will talk a little bit about the history of Sekiro, because that in itself is a unique story and for me adds to the absurdity that it has such an amazing combat. Then, why the fighting system itself is so special and better than in any other similar game. And last, how the video game teaches us this exact mechanic in a really clever but ruthless way. But let's go back in time, to be precise to 2015. This is where everything started. After having finished the DLC of Bloodborne: The Old Hunters, FromSoft originally planned Sekiro to be a sequel to a series of stealth games called Tenchu. Sekiro wasn't meant to be a standalone game, but an iteration of Tenchu, which means it was supposed to be going in a little bit of a different direction than the prequels to see if that would work for the game. However, it seemingly quickly outgrew the concept, which is why they decided to release it as an entire game. So you could say the game was unintended or actually a side project, which is just crazy when you think of the fact that this is the game that has the best combat. So why are the fights so special? Think of Sekiro's fighting system like a choreography. It's really just like a dance with your opponent. It sounds weird, but it's true. You give an input, and on that input, your enemy reacts accordingly. And the other way around, you have to do the same. The dance's speed comes down to your style of fighting. You have the option to take the active or the passive role. The game gives you the freedom to do so. Even if one may be more effective than the other, both can work. Not to mention that Sekiro, even more so than other Souls games, is a rhythm game. It's a flow that you have to get into, which makes it either incredibly satisfying or really painful. I'll give you an example. In this clip you can see that he does a long, rather unpredictable combo. It is to note that successful parries also interrupt opponents' successive attacks, as it slightly staggers them, which again shows the input-reaction aspect I talked about earlier. While I was passive in the first clip, in this one now I play aggressive. And what you can see is that he changes his pattern because of that. I attack him twice, and as a result he either slashes from the left or the right or does his jump attack. So let's really visualize that again. 1, 2, 3. That's the rhythm, and I think it's really noticeable. What I try to showcase here is that the fight is really interactive. You can force your enemy into certain patterns through playing more or less aggressive. That's also where the system differs from other Souls games. You can be really aggressive and you're rewarded for it, as long as the action was backed with enough skill. For that reason, Sekiro's fighting system feels simultaneously unbalanced but also fair. If you get the hang of the combat, the game almost feels easy, and that's not an exaggeration. However, that's also why it's so great. The difficulty of the game is determined by your capabilities. Of course, this is the case for every game, but it is especially in Sekiro. And let's not forget the many combat skills you can use, and your prosthetics, which are abilities that you can access through an artificial arm, like throwing shurikens. And let's be honest, is there even anything more satisfying than a successful Mikiri counter? Probably not. I think all of this clearly showed the complexity of the system. But how does the game implement these mechanics in a way that is not overwhelming for the player? And to put it very plainly, they don't. It wouldn't be the FromSoft way if this wasn't the case. You get thrown right into the game without a lot of guidance. You're all alone. You're taught by failure and experience. Nevertheless, there's one boss that really lets you keep track of your progress. Genichiro. He's a boss you fight right at the beginning, in the middle, and also the end. He's a teacher and a skill check at once. Without learning the value of aggression, you will have a really hard time passing him in the second encounter. That's also the point where for most players the combat system clicks. After you fought him twice, the last encounter really is just a breeze, and shows how much you have developed within the game. Now we have looked at the history of the game, the combat system itself, and also how it is implemented. I hope this video helped you to understand why Sekiro is so special. If you enjoyed the video, please consider a like and subscribing. Thank you for watching.